Hey there, and welcome to part 2 of our Weaving a Market Basket series. If you haven't watched the first one, check the description below. My name is Brittany. I'm a basket weaver and fiber artist. I'm so glad you're here to join me. If you're an old friend, welcome back. If you're new, welcome in. Here I share basketry techniques and tutorials. We're working on weaving a market basket, which is a handled basket that you can use at the farmer's market to hold your other projects or just as a fun decoration. So in video 1, we got to the point where we've woven the base of our basket and twined it. Our stakes are upset and we're ready to start weaving the walls. So in this video, I'm going to cover how to start weaving. If you want the pattern for cutting the stakes and the material list and all of that, we do have an instruction manual for purchase in our online shop, so you can find that linked in the description below. For now, let's dive into weaving the walls of this basket. Something to keep in mind as you're weaving baskets is that you don't have to have one complete length of weaver to do one row. You can use multiple pieces and just do the 4-stake overlap within a row to use up scrap. So if you have shorter pieces that are about 18 inches or longer, you can use multiple pieces per one row. And this is a great way to use up the scrap and still create beautiful baskets out of smaller pieces that would probably otherwise get thrown away. The first 2 rows in this basket are going to be 1/2 inch wide flat reed. So if you're using our kit, go ahead and grab that bundle. You can find the link to our kit in the description. Tap off the excess water. When I am weaving, I don't pre-cut my rows because that allows me the ability to use the exact amount of material that I need in a row without wasting any extra. And it means that I can change the shape or kind of alter how the basket looks as I go without being set in a pre-measured length. So as you work, grab a length of reed. And as I mentioned in the materials video, and I mentioned it here on the channel in the past, but reed comes in a variety of different pre-cut lengths because it's harvested as a vine, and the length of vine that is cut determines the length of the reed. So this piece is probably about 10 feet long. Sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're longer. So what I like to do when working with a long piece like this is drop one into the floor so that I can keep that out of my way, and then I weave from the other end until I finish a row. We're working in start and stop weave for this basket so that we can weave in a pattern. Start and stop means that we start and we end, or start and stop a row each time we go around the basket once. If we continued weaving around in a spiral, you'd end up with kind of a lopsided rim. Or another disadvantage of the continuous spiral weave is that you are stuck working with one type of reed, because in order to connect 2 different thicknesses, you'd have a funky lineup where they meet. So for this basket, we're going to do one row at a time and build it up like we're building a brick wall, one layer at a time. I'm going to tilt my base up on its side like this. This is how I like to start these first rows and start weaving them to see what the outside will look like. It also will help you see on camera what's happening here. So I'm starting on the side opposite of where I left off the twining. So my twining ends are over here. I'm going to weave on this side. So tilt this to the outside. We're now going to be referencing the outside of the basket as our reference point. I want to weave over the handle to kind of cover up this rough corner edge. So I'm going to weave over, under. I'm going to do a little bit of back weaving. Over, under. And I'm going to start this guy on this 3rd stake in. So if you're over the handle, go backwards under. And then if you count 3 in from the right, we're going to clamp this guy right on top here. So clamp it to the outside. We always start to the outside of the basket or the outside of a stake so that we come around and we do our splicing, we're able to see where we start and end. So now I can start weaving. I'm over the handle. I'm going to go behind this next stake, over, behind, over. When you get to a corner, pull slightly taut on your weaver, the piece that you're weaving with, and fold around the corner to create a little bit of a corner crease. We're only going to do this for the first 2 rows, and then we'll start to let the basket round around the corner, but we want to make sure we have just enough reed in the wall and not too much, so we're going to create that corner as a reference. Now, when I tucked my reed in, I did feel to see which side was the right and the wrong side. The wrong side's a bit rougher to the touch. The right side's a bit more smooth. Sometimes the sides feel very similar, and in that case, I would just choose one and have the outside be that smoother side so that the outside of your basket ends up nice and finished and smooth. Now, when you round a corner, make sure you're continuing that over-under pattern. I'm going to flip directions just so you can see what this would look like. And I'm going to throw a clamp in right here to hold this weaver against this stake so it doesn't shift. This will want to move up, and it won't look super secure because with one row in place, it's hard to see what the basket's going to look like, and there's nothing to pack against, so it's going to lift up and be fairly mobile until we get a few rows in place. Now I'm going to turn this so that I can come around this corner and create another crease in this corner here. And now on the shorter side, I'm going to flip this up and weave from the outside of the basket here. Now on this side, you want to make sure you're over the handle on the outside as well on this side. If you're not, if you somehow ended up inside the handle, then that is an indicator that somewhere in the weaving you've done so far, you did an over two or an under two and you skipped one. So look back and make sure you're going over one, under one, over one, under one, all the way around the basket, continuing the pattern, and then ending up so that you're over the handle here. I'm going to grab another clamp this in place so that it doesn't move on me, on that handle, and then weave around. And then on this side, I'm going to put a clamp here in the middle. I like to put a clamp in per side for the first few rows to ensure that this row stays put, because otherwise it bubbles out like this, which is okay as long as you have some clamps holding it in place. Now I'll turn the corner and we're back to where we started. So I'm going to go under this stake here and get out of the way of the clamp. And now my clamp, I'm going to shift it over to the corner here. And now I'm covering this starting end. This is my starting end here. I'm going to cover that up, go under the next stake, over the length that's over the handle, and then cut to the far edge with my scissors, the far edge of this fourth stake over. So we're doing a 4 stake overlap. So I've covered 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to tuck behind this 4th stake, clamp these layers in place so that doesn't shift. And now I've started and ended a row, and both of my ends are hidden so that you can't see them from the inside of the basket or the outside. This 4 stake overlap we're going to do for every single row, so get used to counting over 4 and layering on top of 4 stakes. This is something that we do to make sure as the basket flexes, that row can shift and still have enough length to be hidden without it popping out. It gives it extra security and make sure as we build the basket, the walls are nice and secure. So from here, we're going to do another row of the 1/2 inch wide flat reed. So each row, along with doing the 4 stake overlap, we're also going to quarter turn the basket 1 turn, and you can choose clockwise or counterclockwise, but just be consistent, continue to do that direction. And now I'm going to start this next row on this side of the basket. So my start and stop was over here for the first row. Now I'm going to start over here. And to start on the outside of a stake, we're going to back weave a little bit by going under one and on top of one so that I'm going opposite of what that previous row called for. So I was over here, now I'm going to go under, and I'm going to land this on top and replace this clamp it on there. And I've started over to the left side of this wall to ensure that I have 4 stakes within the space between the 2 corner stakes so that I can do my 4 stake overlap in the middle of the wall or somewhere within the wall space without that overlap rounding a corner. Because if you round a corner, it adds extra density to that corner, extra width, and that kind of sticks out. And if you just go around the corner and cut right there, that's more likely to pop out as well. So we try to start and stop somewhere in the middle of that wall. So then I'm going to continue weaving the opposite pattern of the previous row. like so. And here on this row is where you can start to adjust these overlays, the 1/4 inch wide pieces on top of that thicker piece, and adjust them so that they're centered. Again, we're doing this in natural for this workshop, but if you want to dye your reeds, you'll have a contrast between your overlay piece and your flat reed pieces, which will pop that color out and have a fun design. You can reference the dyeing videos to learn how to dye if you want to do that. When you come around a corner, again, this is the last row we're going to be crimping. We're creating a little fold in the corner, so create that little bit of a fold, making sure you have enough to bring these stakes upright so that they're about 90-degree angle to each other, and then continue weaving, replacing the clamps as you go so that you just shift them around. And now for this row, we need to go inside the handle. So I'm going to take my length, pull it inside the handle and pull all the way through, and then back to the front or the outside of the basket. Try to pull this nice and snug so you don't end up with a bubble behind the handle of too much reed, and then continue to weave. And again, I'm coming to a corner, so I'll create that little bit of a crease, bring this around. Like so. And the other way you can do this, if you're finding having it propped on its side is frustrating, you can do this flat against the table as long as you're pulling tight enough that your stakes start to move upright. And then when you get to the end, you're going to come around the corner, move that clamp out of the way, and then do your 4 stake overlap here as well. So I'll create my corner crease first and then go over this end, behind one, over the 3rd one, and then cut to the far edge of the 4th stake over. Tuck this behind and clamp this in place so that it doesn't move on you, like so. And that is your first 2 rows of weaving. Right now it's going to look a little bit wonky. Your stakes are kind of going every which way. You'll come in and press your rows down, pack them close together. Once we have a few more rows in place, your stakes will stand up more upright, and you'll be able to control the rows and pack them closer together without them moving up or readjusting on you. Now you're going to continue weaving in plain weave, working in the start and stop. So you'll weave 1 row at a time. Make sure you do that 4 stake overlap to ensure that your pieces don't come undone. And weave until you have about an 8-inch tall basket, or you start to hit the curve of the D handle where that wood starts to curve up at the top where you would hold it. You want to stop weaving just below that curved edge. You can play around with your own patterns and create your own design in your basket, or follow the instruction manual that's linked in the description for the pattern that I am doing if you want to mimic my pattern. Be sure to check back next week for the last segment in this basket series. Subscribe and like this video to let me know that you like this basketry content, and check out this video for more basketry information, techniques, and tutorials. See you next time. Bye.